In part two, we're going to cover specific techniques for setting boundaries with lots and lots of examples of what you can say. But I want to leave you in this course today with this. The most important and really, I think, ultimate key to setting boundaries. Are you ready? Drum roll, please. It is self-awareness. So it's possible you're feeling a little disappointed because you hoped it would be this like magical, easy way to set boundaries and not something that takes a lot of effort and is something that all of us all the time already need to be practicing. So if you were hoping it would be something easy and not this, I really feel you. And, as much as I wish that there was an easier way, self-awareness is really the only way to find the line between supporting someone's journey and feeling personally responsible for their outcomes. So, how exactly do we actually practice self-awareness? The first thing that we need to do is understand our triggers. So, it turns out all of us have triggers. And there are different kinds of triggers that we need to understand. First, we have personal triggers. So, for instance, maybe you experienced bullying in your teen years. And so you have a much stronger emotional reaction or response to a person experiencing bullying now. And that can lead to overinvolvement. Our values and our beliefs can really also be a trigger in a way. So, for instance, if you hold really strong beliefs about justice and fairness, then you might get triggered by the injustices or the inequities that the people that you're working with face and feel sort of compelled to right those wrongs, even if you're stepping outside of your role. You might also find that increased stress in your life, whether that's work or personal stress, sort of lowers your resilience to maintaining boundaries, or maybe could cause you to kind of seek out emotional connections that aren't appropriate. And then the last thing is that how we relate to other people can also be a trigger. So, for instance, if you have a strong desire to be liked, or maybe you have an aversion to conflict, you might find yourself avoiding necessary confrontations, or you might make exceptions in order to be liked by that particular person. Or maybe you're someone who needs a lot of validation. You could, without realizing it, be looking to the young people that you're working with for this validation instead of looking to family or friends or to yourself. As you can probably tell, this is deep work. So, unless we understand the things that motivate our behavior, it will be really hard to catch ourselves when we're over involved because it just feels logical to us. We're sort of like in the soup, we can't see the soup. So, how do we understand and address our triggers? I am a huge fan of mindfulness and self-reflection practices. If you've never done them, I know that they can seem intimidating sometimes, but they really can help us essentially learn to separate our thoughts from ourselves so that we can examine those thoughts and reflect on them. I think it's really sort of easy before mindfulness practices to assume that our thoughts are it's so hard to say, to assume that our thoughts are ourselves, right? To assume that our thoughts are true, that our thoughts accurately reflect the world around us. And I think one of the things that mindfulness can do is help us see that as a thought or to see a feeling as temporary, for instance. So it really can be such a helpful tool. We can also seek out support with sort of a mindset of learning and growth. A supervisor, a therapist, they might be folks who, again, will help us be able to make connections between things that we sort of aren't able to see on our own. one of my old coworkers did this for me in a moment that honestly changed my life. He saw something about, he learned a personal detail about my life and he connected that to so many of the ways that I was showing up at work. And it really sort of blew my mind. So being really open to those kinds of insights from other people that we are unable to see ourselves. And then lastly, we can also really build in and create strategies and practices that help us support self-reflection. What I mean by this is thinking about things like breathing. So take a deep breath right now with me. Right. Practicing our breathing. We're going to do this in a minute, actually, a little bit more formally together. It can also mean something like stepping back from that situation, tapping out, getting help from someone else. It can also mean identifying someone that we're going to go seek advice from, someone that we can trust, who knows us really well and isn't afraid to tell us what's what. And most of these are sort of hard to practice in an online course, but breathing is not. And I have found that breathing is, sort of being able to drop into breathing is one of the most important tools that I have, not only at work, but really everywhere in my life. So I want to share with you today a technique that's called box breathing. You can see it here. Let me see if I can do this. Yeah, right here. So essentially what you're doing is you're making a box with your breath. So to do this along with me, close your eyes if you can. And what you're going to do is you're going to breathe in for 4 seconds. You're going to hold for 4 seconds, breathe out for 4 seconds, and then hold for 4 seconds. Are you ready? Okay, here we go. In, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Out, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. One more time. In, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Out, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Well done. So with that, we will stop here for part 1. But I really encourage you to join us for part 2, where we'll be talking about specific ways to actually set boundaries with lots of examples of what we can do and say to make it easier.